And appreciate that you have taken your time that you're supposed to be in your constituency to come and continue with the duties as delegated to us by Parliament. And thank you very much for that. As usual, I'm going to request that we observe a moment of silence or meditation or prayer.
Come on, hear you.
You can't hear me? Hello?
No, I don't hear you.
Right, I can hear you. Other members, can you hear me?
Yes, Chairperson, we can hear you.
Can hear you, Chair.
I think it's Mr. Masheho. Mr. Masheho, check your, you guys call Mr. Masheho to check his mic, whether it's open the audio.
Okay, Chair.
We can hear him. Can as you flag the agenda, can I request members to observe a moment of silence for meditation or prayer as we put our country, remembering those that we are continuously losing through this pandemic, and wishing our country a success in terms of fighting this pandemic that we're facing, and ourselves a well and protected season as we continue in this financial year. Can you observe moment of silence? Thank you very much. Thank you very much, honorable members. Can I note apologies?
Morning, Chair and members. I don't have any apologies for today.
Okay, thank you very much. Honorable members, today we have invited the Auditor-General and Planning and Monitoring to come and brief us on the annual report of the Department of Water and Sanitation. Would remember that the report has been tabled late, so thank you for availing yourself to come and engage with the annual report. We have applied 3 days for us to look into the annual report, and it was accepted. Can I request members to adopt the agenda?
It's actually.
Can I request members to adopt the agenda as tabled? Am I audible, members?
We can hear you, Chair.
Okay. Can I request that we adopt the agenda, honorable members? Can I note the hand to adopt the agenda, Honorable Nancy? Honorable Setlwai, we can't hear you.
I propose that I adopt the agenda as it is, Chair.
Thank you very much. Can we get seconder? Honorable Mvana.
Thanks, Chair. I second, Chair.
Thank you very much. Let me take the opportunity to welcome the Auditor-General. I've not briefed who's here from the Auditor-General. They will introduce themselves and the team. And we want to thank them for availing themselves to come and brief us on the annual report of the department. We know that it was a delayed report. Auditor-General would appreciate even if you can start by telling us why the report was delayed, so that this should not repeat itself, because it's a cost to members too. Let me take the opportunity to welcome the Auditor-General and his team, who are in your hands, Auditor-General.
Thank you very much, Chair. Just put my video on. Thank you very much, Chair, and good morning, members. My name is Eugene Dehan, and I'm the Deputy Business Executive responsible for, amongst other portfolios, the water portfolio. What I'll do is I'll just give a quick opportunity for my team to also introduce themselves, because we have the different members from my team who also been responsible for the different audits. So let me just give an opportunity, and then we can move straight into some of the reasons why what we've experienced during the specific audit period, and then we can then also move forward to our presentation. We quickly hand over to, I think we can start with Suret first, and then the other two engagement managers who's also responsible then for PCTA and also WTE. Thank you.
Good morning, Honorable Chair, Honorable Members. My name is Suret Talya. I don't know if you can see me.
We can't, we appreciate just to see your face, and then you can later on switch off your mic.
Let me just see, because I have started with the video, but I don't know what is now wrong with my Zoom. Let me just see. Yeah. My apologies. I seem to have a technical problem with the video, because I did start video. So the video is supposed to start, but you can't see me. So apologies for that.
No problem.
But I was responsible for the Department of Water and Sanitation. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Good morning, Chairperson, and to the committee members. My name is Hirashma Amika. I am currently acting as the Senior Manager responsible for the audit of WTE and TCTA. I'm also accompanied by my audit managers, Sulufelo, Godfrey, and Laula, but I'll also give them a chance to introduce themselves. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Good morning, Honorable Chair and committee members. My name is Sulufelo Tabachale. I'm the audit manager, predominantly responsible for the audit of TCTA. Thank you.
Honorable Chair, my name is Laula Mfane. I'm also part of the ADSA team responsible for the water treatment. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Your sound is very clear. Maybe you should look at reworking it if you are going to participate.
Good morning, Chair. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Good morning, Chair and honorable members. I'm Godfrey Swafo. I'm the audit manager at Water Trading Entity. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you very much, Chair. So that's my team that will also be helping me with the presentation today. So maybe just to start off on the very first question that you as the Chair also raised is one of the questions regarding why the late finalization of the annual report. Obviously, within the portfolio, we have the Department of Water and Sanitation. We also have the Water Trading Entity. And then we also have the specific DCTA, which is a Schedule 2 entity in terms of the BFMA. And then we also have the water boards, which also follow a different cycle, but that does not form part of the annual report specifically. But in today's presentation, we'll be giving a feedback in terms of the water and sanitation portfolio. We give the audit outcomes in that regard, but we also give some feedback regarding the water boards, where we are currently in terms of the 9 water boards, because 6 has been finalized, 3 is still outstanding, and we will also provide some reasons as to why they are still outstanding at this point in time. But maybe to give you an indication, I think one of the biggest impacts we've had during this the last year in terms of finalizing the audits was specifically the COVID impact. We also had quite a significant delay in receiving information, and that's also because of the fact that there were some key officials that were also then contracting the actual virus. And then what also happened was then the department itself also closed last year, if I remember correctly, but for 2 or 3 weeks due to the self-quarantining, etc. So that also had quite a big impact for us to get information. What we identified specifically for WTE is there was quite a turnaround time of about 18 days in terms of submitting information when we made the requests, which was about double the amount of time in the previous year before the pandemic, which also caused some delays. What also happened was, you will recall, the water trading entity was scoped in terms of our new legislation, our extended powers. So in 2018-19, we actually raised a specific material irregularities that we identified. And then for this 19-20 financial year, we had to now go and verify what the department have actually done to resolve some of those material irregularities. So that also took a bit longer for us to go and verify. That also delayed the process for WTE specifically to actually finalize that specific audit, because we had to get some information from the department. We had to follow up and make sure those investigations that they had to institute were actually in progress, and some of the outcomes of those investigations were also then specifically implemented. So that was some of the delays we identified. Then you will also recall with WTE and TCTA, they're also dependent on information coming from the Lesotho Highlands Development Agency. And the challenge with this is that the Lesotho Highlands Development Agency, their financial year or their audit report is 1 month later than the specific normal legislative date. So that also had an impact on us to also then making sure that some of the balances we're receiving that forms part of the WTE financials and also the TCTA financials were then correctly incorporated into those 2 sets of financial statements. So we also had to then go back and forth and have several engagements with them, and also get the necessary assurance from those auditors to make sure that we actually then working with the correct balances and figures. But yeah, it's been quite a challenging year. My team has been through various engagements, and I really want to say thank you to them for all the additional effort they've done. We do take note of the fact that we were quite late this year with specific audits and finalizing the audits. We really do foresee, hopefully this year going forward, it will not be the case. But yeah, we'll have to see as to how we deal with, as we all know, obviously there's a third wave that's been predicted. We're not sure if it will realize. But I think hopefully, I think one thing that we've really mastered over the last 12 months is to how to work remotely and still get the audit done. Obviously, that was also quite a big challenge for us. Now moving from a very hands-on process to a more remote process, and also then getting the necessary information we need. So that has all really impacted in terms of then the exceptional timeline that we've actually achieved this year in terms of finalizing the audits. So we really do hope this year will be a better year. The one thing that is consistent year on year is the fact that obviously that the Lesotho Development Island Agency is always signed 1 month later. So their audit report only comes out at the end of August. So that is a challenge we will need to deal with year on year and see how we're going to incorporate those balances and figures into the WTE and TCTA financial statements at an earlier time, and also get the necessary assurance we need from those auditors. So that's something we will need to work on this year and see how we can actually streamline that specific process. So that's from my side, just addressing your question, Chair. I don't know if you want us to move forward to a presentation, or is there anything else you want to raise with us before we move to the actual presentation? Thank you very much.
No, let's proceed. I just thought it's important for members to know what was the delay. Let's proceed with the presentation.
No, okay, perfect. I think we'll do the presentation. Like I mentioned, the presentation is going to cover the audit outcomes for the department and the department's portfolio, but then also for the water boards as well, the ones that we've also finalized. We will also include the reasons as to why some of these audits are late, or also then some of the reasons why some of these audits are still outstanding. Obviously, in the presentation, we're also highlighting the comparison to the previous year's audit outcome, which also gives the portfolio committee an indication whether or not some of these audits have actually improved or regressed, and what are the specific challenges. And then we'll also highlight the root causes that the portfolio committee needs to be aware of in terms of that gave rise to some of these findings and challenges that we've experienced. But having said that, thank you very much, Chair, and thank you very much for inviting us. We really appreciate the being here and being able to present, and also then being also able to share the audit outcomes with the portfolio committee members. I will then hand over to Suret. She'll be taking us through the presentation, and then we can take some questions afterwards. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Honourable Chair. I'm sharing my screen. Can you please just confirm if you can see it?
Yes, we can see.
Okay, thank you very much. So we are briefing then the portfolio committee on all the entities within the portfolio. As you know, the reputation promise of the AG is to strengthen the country's democracy by enabling the oversight, accountability, and governance in the public sector through the auditing that we are doing. Also, with this BRRR feedback that we are giving is also to assist the portfolio committee in its oversight role of assessing the performance of the entities within the water portfolio. As you know, the AG, we are examining 3 areas within our auditees. The one is looking at the fair presentation of the financial statements. Then we also look into the reliability and credibility of performance information. And then the third area is where we look into the compliance with laws and regulations within these auditees. There are 5 types of audit opinions that can be expressed from the AG side. From the left-hand side, you have the unqualified opinion with no findings, which is usually referred to as the clean audit. That in that instance, your financial statements are free of material misstatements, they are reliable, as well as your predetermined objectives. They are also reported as being useful and reliable, and we did not pick up any material findings on compliance. So in all three of those areas, we don't have any material misstatements. With financially unqualified, in this instance, the financial statements is still unqualified. However, there's then either a finding on predetermined objectives or on compliance. When we move into the purple bracket, that is where the financial statements, there's challenges. There is some part of the financial statements that is not fairly presented, and then we usually provide a qualified audit opinion. With an adverse opinion, in that instance, there is challenges where we have disagreements with management. We do not agree with some of the information that is included in those financial statements and disclosed, and it is affecting so many areas of that financial statements that we then provide an adverse opinion indicating to the users that that the financial statement is not fairly presented. With regards to a disclaimed opinion, in that instance, we have limitations where we did not receive everything that we can have audit evidence, sufficient audit evidence. And then in that regard, we will tell the users that we actually cannot provide an opinion because we don't know. So this is the 5 audit opinions that can be expressed. With regards to accountability in our auditees, what we just say there is, from a management point of view, they need to define a target, they need to plan properly. With doing that, they need to ensure that their internal control systems is implemented, the do part of the process. Then they need to monitor and check, make sure that all the assurance providers within the whole process is doing what they are supposed to be doing. If there is someone that is not doing that, consequence management needs to take effect. And if you do all of this, your outcomes will then result in better audit outcomes, which at the end of the day is then impacting a better life for the citizens with reference then to water in this scenario. So making sure that everyone stays accountable. Okay, with the portfolio that we are discussing today, we have in the Department of Water and Sanitation, the main account. We also look at the water trading entity and the Trans-Caledon Tunnel Authority, TCTA, as well as the Water Research Commission, and then you have your 9 audit water boards, the 3 Bs, that we will be focusing on today. The audit outcomes in this slide, we only provide the 4 entities, which is the Department, Water Research Commission, TCTA, and Water Trading. As can be seen from our picture, there's an improvement. In 2018-19, Water Trading and TCTA was qualified, and now for the 19-20 financial year, they moved into the unqualified with findings. So TCTA at this stage still have findings on compliance with legislation, as well as predetermined objectives, TCTA, and Water Trading also still have compliance findings, and therefore all 4 of these entities sit in the yellow bracket of unqualified on the financial statements, but with certain findings. From this picture at the top, with the financial statements, the quality or financial statements was provided within the legislated date. Water Research is the financial statements that were free from material misstatements. And the Department, TCTA, and Water Trading entity, after the audit, there was corrections made on the financial statements, resulting then in the unqualified audit opinions. With performance report, what they're trying to explain with my, an asterisk, is that in this slide, we are counting water trading entities' performance also as one. So as can be seen, water trading, the department, and Water Research Commission, the quality of the performance information received were of a high quality. However, with TCTA, they had to correct some material misstatements identified during the audit, which they did correct. However, there was still a finding that they couldn't correct on objective 2, which was then included in the audit report. Just quickly, a high-level overview of the performance information of the department, which is now including the water trading entity. What we have done as the AG, we have selected program 3 to audit that program specifically that was included in our audit. And we did not identify any material misstatements within that program. So remember, we look at the usefulness and the reliability of the information that is reported by management. Thus, management report if they achieve or they don't achieve. We just look at those figures or what they are reporting to make sure that it is valid, it is accurate, and it is complete. So in that instance with program 3, we did not identify any material findings. And then just in summary, we have also then compared the budget on the achievements, and with that program specifically, the department spend on the budget was 92.7%, and the achievement of that program was at 35%. If we look at the performance of TCTA specifically, there the team have audited objective 2, operate and maintain designated projects in accordance with the DWS requirements. The achievement on that program was at 0%. And as indicated before, we did identify material misstatements that was corrected. However, that one specific material finding resulted then in a finding that was included in the audit report. Apologies. If we move into compliance, as can be seen, all 4 entities is still with findings, the Department, Water Trading, TCTA, and Water Research. The Department, TCTA, and Water Trading entity had to amend their financial statements. There was still a non-compliance finding included for procurement and contract management for water trading entity. All the entities still had expenditure management, meaning that there was still either irregular expenditure or fruitless and wasteful expenditure included in their financial statements. Water trading still had, sorry?
Can I request that we mute, Nosi? Can we mute our mic? Proceed, ma'am.
Hello?
Can we proceed? Can I request that we mute our mic? Proceed, ma'am.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. So with expenditure management, like I've indicated, the water trading also had a compliance finding that payments were not done within 30 days. With the Department on conditional grants, what we've seen is the full spend was not done with those conditional grants. And at year end, that portion that was left was not supported by cash on hand. And then also on consequence management, there was no evidence that could be provided for disciplinary steps that were taken against officials who had incurred irregular expenditure. So that's the section on non-compliance within these entities. If we look at the status of internal controls, you will see that there was a slight improvement if you look at the green arrows at the right-hand side. What we've indicated there with regards to leadership, that the effective leadership still remains, is still the instability with top management within the department and water trading is still persistent. And then with regards to TCTA, is that management did not ensure that there were adequate controls in place to foster a culture of compliance with laws and regulations and internal policies. With regards to the financial and performance management processes, they again, with TCTA, there was not proper record management systems in place to support the financial and performance reporting. Then in the department, water trading and TCTA, again, the controls needs to be strengthened around the reconciliations and reviews of financial statements. And then with TCT also on performance information. And there's also inadequate policies in place to understand the execution of internal control objective, processes and responsibilities specifically to TCTA. So this is the status of internal controls. When we move into the assurance providers within the auditees, we see that on the first level, again, is that the acting incumbents within the department and water trading did provide some assurance. With TCTA, however, management did not demonstrate adequate coordination of information being submitted for audit. And in addition, there was also a lack of clear guidance and supervision within the finance division, as information would be submitted with errors and not being updated or reviewed by the appropriate structures. If we move into the second level, with the executive authority, the reason it is providing some assurance on TCTA is just for the purposes of the oversight that needs to be exercised through the intervention of measures to address the recurring issues related to the treaty agreement governance. So to ensure that the governance related to the cross-border project are clarified, which will then facilitate finality on appropriate accounting and reporting within TCTA. And then with internal audit with TCTA is what the team have experienced is that although the internal audit on the assurance reviewed the financial statements for TCTA, the financial statements still contained material costing and cross-costing errors. And the financial statements also in some instances did not agree to the supporting schedules. So this is on the assurance providers. If we move into the financial health section, the picture from last year is improving. So for this 19-20 year, there's no material uncertainties that exist, either for the department or for the water trading entity. But what I would like to just indicate is that with the water trading entity's cash position, which improved to a positive closing balance at year end, there is approximately 1,861 million of amounts that was included in accruals, trade payables, and the current liability for TCTA, which is expected to be paid almost immediately after year end. And if those payments would then be done, that will again leave the bank balance in an overdrawn balance of 798 million. So this is on the financial health section of the four entities. On fruitless and wasteful expenditure, as can be seen, there is a decrease from 754 million to 566 million that was incurred for the current year under review. The main contributor to this fruitless and wasteful expenditure was the 565 million from water trading entity, of which 305 million represents abnormal costs incurred relating to internal projects, and then 223 million representing losses relating to external projects. If you look at the graph at the bottom, that is where we indicate if investigations and consequence management did occur within fruitless and wasteful expenditure, and for the investigations conducted, all four entities did do those investigations on fruitless and wasteful expenditure. If we move into irregular expenditure, that significantly decreases over the 2 years. So for the 2018-19 financial year, it was sitting at 5,800 million. It's sitting now for the current year on 979 million. Main contributors to the irregular expenditure is deviations that was not justified, contracts was extended without prior approval, and there was variation on some contracts of 20%, which was then not approved by National Treasury. There is, however, in the environment of supply chain, an improvement that we have seen with controls, as it was only the water trading entity this year that had material non-compliance findings included in their audit report. If we look at the investigations that was conducted, Water Trading TCTA and Water Research did do investigations on the irregular expenditure. The department has also done a lot of investigations. However, with the sample that we have selected, there was some incidents where we could not identify or receive evidence that the disciplinary steps were taken against those officials after the investigation have been conducted for the 18-19 financial year. Okay, that concludes then the 4 auditees included in the portfolio. I will then quickly touch on the water boards that was audited and the audit outcomes for 2019-20. Currently, as we stand, we are still sitting with 3 water boards that has not yet been signed off, which is Sedibeng, Randwater and Amatola. With regards to Amatola,
watertight principle in our previous.
Can we get people who are in this meeting to mute their mic? For you guys, those that does not want to mute, you must remove them from the system.
Okay, Chair.
Ma'am.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Like I was saying, the 3 audits, Sedibeng, Randwater and Amatola, is still outstanding and we haven't signed the audit reports yet. The main reasons for that is with regards to Sedibeng, the financial statements was only received in December, and thus the audit is still ongoing and we're still busy with that audit. With regards to Randwater, there was a technical matter that had to be followed up. So there was a disagreement between management and the team, and it was very technical. So it followed a process also where National Treasury had to be consulted, etc. So that took time to conclude on the audit. And then with regards to Amatola, the team was requesting supply chain information on Amatola. However, that information, with all the investigations being conducted, was sitting with the SIU. So the audit team had to wait for that information to be provided to them, and that also hampered then the progress on that audit. And as can be seen then, there's also a nice improvement in the picture of the water boards. Magalis and Mlatuzi received then a clean audit, which means they don't have a qualification on their financials, and they also don't have any material findings on performance information and on compliance. Okay, so with compliance on the left-hand side, Bloem, Overberg, Umgeni and Lepele, there is still effective steps that were not taken. So they still have irregular expenditure and fruitless and wasteful expenditure and non-compliance within that section. And then on looking at the predetermined objectives side, with regards to Bloem and Umgeni, there was material findings raised with Bloem with a strategic objective 1, and with Umgeni also strategic objective 1. However, with Bloem and Umgeni, they did subsequently correct those material findings, and it did not result in a material finding included in the audit report. But with Lepelle, the achievement reported in the annual performance report materially differed from the supporting evidence provided for strategic objective 1, and therefore that material finding was then included in the audit report. Just quickly, a high-level picture on the financial health of the water boards. So currently for the 6 water boards that was audited, the municipal debt that's part of the trade receivables consists of 66% of the total receivables. We have seen that the debtor collection is not that adequate. There was still some significant increases in the provision for impairment of receivables. Debt collection period at most water boards are still greater than 30 days. Where they do collect about 80% within 30 days, but 20% takes a little bit longer. And what we're just indicating is that they just need to strengthen this to ensure that service delivery is not negatively impacted. With regards to fruitless and wasteful in the water boards, it also decreases from 9 million to only 817,000. And the main contributor this year is the 799,000 from Lepelle, which is interest and penalties. So looking at the 6 water boards that was audited, the investigations have been conducted on all fruitless and wasteful expenditure. With regards to irregular expenditure incurred by the entities in the portfolio, it also decreased from 2,106 million to 730 million on irregular expenditure. Main contributor there is a variation of 20%, not approved by National Treasury, which is currently sitting with Umgeni of 713 million. And then there was also extension of contracts, etc. If we look at the non-compliance findings, we've also seen in these 6 water boards that we've audited that there was an improvement in the supply chain compliance, because there was only one auditee, Bloom, that had a finding in the audit report on procurement management. And then if we look at the investigations, there was just Umgeni where there was not evidence of disciplinary steps taken after the investigations was conducted. Okay, then I move into the section on the material irregularities, the key expansion of our mandate. Just quickly on a high level, a material irregularity is any non-compliance with or contravention of legislation, fraud, theft, or a breach of fiduciary duties identified during an audit performed under our Act, the PAA, that resulted in or is likely to result in a material financial loss, the misuse or loss of a material public resource, or substantial harm to a public sector institution or the general public. So with the whole phase in approach within the AG, the water sector featured, and with the department and the water trading entity, that process have already started in the 2018-19 financial year. In that year, 4 material irregularities was identified, which was included already then in the audit reports for those for the 2 auditees. With regards to the one material irregularity where a payment was not made within 30 days, which was the non-compliance, which then resulted in a contractor claiming standing time, that material irregularity during this audit was then resolved because the accounting officer's actions were appropriate, a full investigation was conducted, and the internal controls within the department were strengthened to prevent future similar losses in this regard. With regards to the 3 remaining, the one is the payment made to a consulting firm within the department, where the non-compliance was with Treasury Regulations 8.1.1. The water trading entity, where effective and appropriate steps were not taken to collect all money due to the entity. And also the third one, where payments were not made within 30 days. Within these 3 MIs, we have currently not made any recommendations at this point in the audit report for implementation. And we also did not do any referrals at this stage. We will be following up on the progress made and the actions that needs to be implemented now by the accounting officer during the 2021 audit that we're currently in. Then concluding remarks and recommendations. So a snapshot of the 4 auditees. Clean audits, we are still stagnant, no clean audits at this stage. However, like I've indicated, financially unqualified financial statements improved. And then on predetermined objectives and compliance findings remained the same, and irregular expenditure improved then significantly from 5,800 million to 979 million. If we look at the snapshot for the water boards, this is a bit, if I can use the word skew, because now we're comparing 6 audits comparing to 9 for 18-19. However, there were 2 clean audits that improved. The clean audits with 2 financially unqualified shows a regression because there was 8 last year, but like I've indicated, it's not really comparing apples with apples at this stage. Also with performance reports moving down, compliance findings moving up because we have 2 clean audits, and then irregular expenditure also improved from that 2,106 million to 730 million rand. The root causes, if we just go back to the 4 auditees, usually we have our 3 main root causes: a slow response to improving key controls, inadequate consequence management, or instability or vacancies in key positions. With slow response, it improved because we are actually only highlighting then on TCTA that there was a slow response by management, and there was inadequate reviews and reconciliations, as well as delay of submission of information. With consequence management within the 4 auditees, we can report that we have seen improvement on the actions taken in all 4 of these auditees. And then instability and vacancy still remains the same, as we still have the vacancy within the DG and the CFO's position within the department and water trading entity. Our recommendations. The first recommendation is obviously for management to ensure that the risks that we have identified are addressed by improving always internal controls and implementing preventative controls. The vacant position of the accounting officer should be prioritized to ensure an effective and continuous leadership within the department and water trading. And as can be seen through the years, there has really been a significant high turnover rate at the level of DG. And most of these years, the position was occupied by an acting incumbent. And then also from improving internal controls, specifically to reviews and reconciliation of information submitted pertaining to the financial statements. And then also that's for the department, water trading and TCTA, and then also with performance information with regards to TCTA. Consequence management did improve, but we are saying it would always need to be on the radar of management, and it needs to be implemented as and when a transgression occurs. Then with the water boards, just making sure that the recovery of debt owed is also a focus point, making sure that they have strategies in place to recover the debt. Oversight by the department, the minister and parliamentary committees is responsible for these entities, should include strong in-year monitoring to ensuring that the governance policies and practices in place are properly monitored, and then improved and focused intensive stakeholder engagements for better coordination and collaboration from all the relevant role players within this sector, who is responsible for the business of providing this basic need to the citizens. And then just lastly, again, building the strong control environment is where if you have included your preventative control with your assurance providers, which is your senior management, your accounting officer, and your internal audit and audit committee, and you have a strong control environment, strong preventative controls, then your material irregularities and poor audit outcomes will obviously be much less. That is the end of my presentation. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Any addition from the other members of the Auditor-General?
Thank you very much, Chair. I think from our side, that concludes our presentation. We've included now the audit outcomes for the water and sanitation portfolio, and then also the water board. So we can now proceed into taking questions or whatever is on the agenda next. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you very much. I'm going to allow members to interact with your presentation before we go to the second item. Can I get members to interact with the Auditor General's presentation?
Yeah, I don't know whether you can see our hands.
Honorable Leon, you are the first. And Honorable Mokhotu, Honorable Mosala, you'll follow.
Thank you very much, person.
So, Honorable, can I request that those that are not speaking must mute their mic, please?
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, I would like to ask the Auditor General on the water boards. I'm very much concerned about the status of our water boards. If we look at the situation where by the end of last year, the water boards were requesting funding, a bridging funding of 960 million rand due to non-payment by municipalities. And this continues, and the growth in the debt at water boards is surprisingly, and it's alarming high. I want to find out from the Auditor General, what is their opinion on, whether they could give us an opinion, how we will resolve this problem of non-payment by municipalities, or could they make some suggestions? Because the problem is that in a year's time, water boards won't be viable anymore because they don't get enough funding in from municipalities paying for that service. And that could give us a huge failure in the water industry, supplying of clean drinking water to the communities in South Africa. We see, and I'm not sure, Chair, some of the water boards were not ready yet. But I'm worried about Sedibeng, Magalies, Bloemwater, most of the water boards. They are all in the same financial problems, and it's not of their own doing, but it's a fact that they can't collect the money from municipalities, and it seems there's no support from local government and COCTA to make sure that these payments are made to the water boards. Just the opinion of the Auditor General. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Leon. Honorable Mokhotu.
Thank you, Chairperson. I would like to know from the Auditor General,
What were some of the reasons provided to Auditor-General on the department's inability to obtain sufficient appropriate audit evidence on irregular expenditure? And what is the impact of incomplete records on the ongoing investigations into irregular expenditure? And then my next question is, the majority of irregular expenditure was caused by deviations from normal procurement processes and an extension of a contract without prior approval by the delegated officer. In your opinion, do you think the current remedial actions taken by the department to improve its procurement processes is sufficient and efficient, or should there be more intervention by National Treasury? And then my last question is on, if you look on page 156, paragraph 32, your opinion talks about other information that was not provided before the date of the auditor's report. Is that a general comment, or is there information that still needs to be submitted to the Auditor-General by the department? If so, what is the nature of information that needs to be provided? Has there been a case in any department whereby the Auditor-General retracted an audit opinion due to information provided post facto, which reflected major material misstatements? Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Honorable Mokhutu, Honorable Musala.
Thanks so much, Chairperson. My questions to the Auditor General, I'll start by the audit opinion on the main account. So my first question is, the Auditor General evaluated the usefulness and the reliability of the reported performance information on Program 3, Water Infrastructure Development, as reflected on page 56 to 67. Your findings on this program were that you did not identify any material findings on the reported performance information as usefulness and reliability for this program. Your office basically looked at the department's annual performance target in relation to what the department provided in respect of the attainment of targets for this program. Yet, Program 3 only attained 37% of these projected targets. How do you correlate these findings when procurement issues within this program escalated the non-attainment of many targets? Chairperson, I would also like to commend the department for obtaining an unqualified audit opinion for both the main account and water trading entity. However, the Auditor General is also responsible for assessing whether departmental financial misstatements occurred when providing an opinion due to fraud or error. Does an unqualified opinion mean that the department did not find any material misstatement in the department's financial statement? If not, could more information be provided on this matter? Although this was subsequently corrected, is this not testimony that the department's internal control audit processes are extremely weak and should be strengthened? Chairperson, with regards to the water trading entity, the audit opinion of the water trading entity was unqualified, but with a number of emphasis of matters such as the under contingent assets, which resulted in an overpayment of royalties emanating from the treaty between Lesotho and the Republic of South Africa. Restatement of corresponding figures due to errors in the financial statement as of end 31st March 2020. Under material impairment, an amount of 2 billion for trade debtors, and which are potentially irrecoverable. The question is, what are the implications of the emphasis of matters on the going concern of the water trading entity? Has the issue of overpayment of royalties by South Africa to Lesotho been resolved? Trade debtors and non-payment are a significant concern of the water trading entity for many years. How can the entity, in your opinion, work towards alleviating the challenges associated with trade debtors? Chairperson, expenditure management within the water trading entity, specifically on the entity's inability to prevent irregular expenditure, resulted in amounts of 142 million and irregular expenditure amounting to 11 million resulting from new contract was caused by similar transgressions as those identified in previous years. What was the basis for no shift in improvement on this matter of the prior year to the year under review? Chairperson, for a number of years, the water trading entity has struggled with not having effective and appropriate steps to collect all money due to the entity. Accrued revenue raised in prior years that should have been billed had not been invoiced. The non-compliance with legislation relating to accrual revenue not being invoiced could result in a material financial loss of 346 million. Apart from training personnel on proper billing and invoicing processes, does the department have any legal recourse in obtaining accrued revenue? Or should this be regarded as irrecoverable loss? On page 254 and 255 of the annual financial statement of the department for 2019-20, it reflects that the department sourced the services of 30 advisors. Is this, in your opinion, both to the AG and DPMA cause for concern or cause for concern? The other question, Chairperson, is the SG satisfied with the progress on investigations and disciplinary process by the Department of Water and Sanitation? What further recommendation would you suggest, AG, in this regard? Last question, Chairperson, is with regard to the 13 cases on irregular expenditure, condonation amounting to 9.7 billion on both the main account and water trading entity. Explanation on progress state that civil litigations or disciplinary proceedings are in progress. What are some of the high-level auditing concerns this may trigger on the going concern of the department? The total number of the disciplinary cases against officials is 63. Thank you.
Honorable Mashego.
Thanks, Chairperson. As you remember, I have got a difficulty of hearing some of the things we're saying. If I ask something that was clarified, please forgive me. The best point I want to raise is that one must be happy of the fact that overall there is an improvement both from the water trading entities and even on the department, even though there is still a lot of challenges in the report. For instance, the assumption I'm making is that the department will still want to come back to us and say, given these findings of the AG, what is the recourse that they have done in terms of consequence management and in terms of bettering the status quo? In the absence of it, I will ask these questions, Chair. But on the TCTA report, the English used sound a little bit mild, but it means quite a lot of things. For instance, the AG says in their investigation they could find that the financial report or financial report given to them does not correlate with money in the bank. It's a very simple thing if you say it like that, but the fact is that it means you're given a financial statement with figures that if you do not check the money in the bank, you might think there is money in the bank when in actual fact there is none. Now, I don't get a sense of what is it that the AG is finding there and what is the recommendation they're making. To me, it might be a misinformation if we give you a statement that there is 10 rand in the account. When you check the account, there is 0. That might be a problem. The other one which they're raising is that there is a tendency of allowing contractors to do work beyond their agreed upon terms of employment. In that sense, that's where a lot of corruptions happen, because then you start giving people work and money that is which was not supposed to be given to that particular person. I don't get a sense whether does the AG see that as wrong, and if yes, what is the recommended sanction that they are recommending that the department should do in the TCTA? Generally, Chair, when we in the APPs we raise this issue of the accruals. I can see there is an attempt to want to work down on those, but it is very minimal. The movement thereof is very minimal. Can we be made to understand what is the plan that seeks to want to meet to bring the most especially your expenditure that is unaccounted for, the money, the accruals that are growing every day? There is no sense from the AG report that this is what you are putting as measures that the departments must look into, and you want to hold them accountable for that, and you want to allow us also to hold them accountable to that. As I've said, if you might find that maybe that report is given, I'm struggling to follow on quite a number of things. But this is a question I wanted to ask Chair. But generally, I'm happy that there is a betterment of quite a lot of things that were the findings in the previous year, 18-19, as compared to 19-20. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Mashego. I don't see any other hands from honorable members. Just to add on the question and welcoming the report from the AG and acknowledging this improvement, looking where we come from, there is a huge improvement, and I want to agree with the Honorable Mashego that a lot has to be done to make sure that we, the department and entities, obtain the clean audit. Just to check with Auditor-General, I see in your report this department is one of the departments that you have selected for the implementation of the amendment that Parliament has done on the public amendment act on the, just to check on the repeated findings. Are you convinced that reason given by the department are of assistance to yourselves? Secondly, the issue of the stability of the department on the DG and the CFO, I suppose you have met with the executing authority just to check why is there is no movement at that? Is it we will be interacting with the department? I know we'll ask the same question, but one would have interest to understand, because it was the findings of the Auditor-General. What is the response of the executing authority? The last thing on the ATCA, on the internal control, as the finding, majority of findings shows that there is weak systems, and this is might be a repeated findings. What was the reason for them not strengthening those internal controls. Lastly, on whether the audit committee and internal audit committee of ATCTA is doing what it's supposed to do in terms of Auditor-General's view. Thank you. Auditor-General, you can respond.
Thank you very much, Chair. So I will take some of the questions, the overall questions. I will answer some of them, and then I will also direct some of my questions to my engagement manager, specifically responsible for those specific audits, who will have a bit more detail on what has been requested. But we do appreciate the questions. Please, if we miss any of the questions, please feel free to ask them again. There were quite a few questions, but I will try. We will try and answer all of them as what has been posted to us. So maybe for the very first question was in terms of the breaching funding and the non-payment. So from our side, it's one of the recommendations that we also included is for these water boards to strengthen their debtor collections and to also improve their debtor internal controls overall, because what we are finding is that it is a real concern currently. Specifically some of those water boards that the member did mention, we are also experiencing from our side going concern difficulties, and to the extent that from our side we're also actually writing off some of our audit costs just to make sure we can actually accommodate some of these audits and still execute our public mandate that has been given to us. So I think that the best recommendation will be obviously to strengthen their data process. I think that's the first one. And the second one is maybe what the water boards need to do as a collective is that they need to start approaching maybe a treasury and see how that equitable share that gets transferred through from DWS actually gets reallocated maybe directly to them instead of the municipalities, or whatever alternative they can find in terms of keeping them actually as a going concern. Because, yeah, I think from our side, that's also one of the reasons why we've included that specific slide is to monitor the debt with the water boards. Because as we are continuing with these audits, we're also identifying that is really a concern that is like building up, and it will really be a material issue in the future if it's not being dealt with appropriately and adequately. Then the second one in terms of, so from our understanding for the irregular expenditure that has been ongoing with the Department of Water and Sanitation, it's been some of those irregular expenditure investigations have been long outstanding. We have been following up with them on a regular basis. Every audit engagement, we've been following up with them. So the feedback that we received from the department was that they have approached National Treasury. National Treasury has provided them some guidance. They've done the investigations. But now what is happening is that some of those investigations are still with the SIU, or is in terms of in front of the court. So that's why the National Treasury has not moved forward in terms of the actual condemnation of some of those irregular expenditure that has been long outstanding. It is a bit of a concern. We are obviously raising it on a continuous basis, because in terms of the PFMA and the consequence management section, you need to actually implement certain actions to try and actually condone the irregular expenditure, and that's after your investigation, and then also holding people accountable and trying to see what you can recover at the end of the day in terms of the irregular expenditure incurred. So it seems from our side what we could understand is that the department have done a lot of work in this regard. They have approached National Treasury, but National Treasury did give them feedback in terms of they are waiting to see what's the outcome of some of the pending investigations and also and some of the legal action that's been instituted. So that's what we've identified. Then regarding the performance information that the member asked, so the 37%, I think, so our methodology talks about the usefulness and the reliability. So when we are expressing that there were no material findings that we could identify regarding Program 3 that we've audited, what we are actually indicating is to say that whatever they have reported on the annual performance report is a fairly presented statement as to what has actually been achieved by the department. So in that instance, where they have reported that they've only achieved 30%, 37% of the actual planned targets, we are now confirming that what they are saying is actually true and fair, and it is correct in that sense. So that question in terms of why they've only achieved 37% of the planned 100%, that needs to be more directed to the department in terms of getting understanding as to what were the challenges for them actually not achieving the full 100% they were aiming to achieve. So obviously from our side, our methodology is only to give the user the assurance that whatever they are stating in the annual performance report is a true and accurate and fair reflection of the department affairs. So I've touched on the regular expenditure. Oh, so the one section on the other information that we included in the audit report, I think when we refer to that other information, it refers to other information in the annual report. It will not refer to information that we've reviewed and that we have audited, that forms part of our audit opinion, or that forms part of our scope on compliance or performance information. When we refer to that specific section, we will then make a reference to say that the annual report includes additional information within the annual report that once we get the annual report, we will make sure that there's no contradicting statements in the additional information of the annual report contradicting any of the information that we've actually audited. So that reference paragraph is then just indicating that when we signed this audit report, we've not received that additional information in the annual report, and that then gets submitted subsequently. So currently the process, how that works is that we will sign the audit report in an ideal audit cycle, not talking about the cycle that is now passed. So an ideal audit cycle, we will sign the audit report on 31 July, and then the department still has got 1 month to prepare the annual report, which should then obviously get submitted at the end of August to Parliament for tabling. So within that month of August, they will then submit to us their full draft copy of the annual report. We will go through that annual report, we will proofread it, and we will make sure there's no contradicting statements contradicting our audit report or our audit conclusion, to make sure that it's all aligned. We will then give feedback to the department for them to go and update where needed, and then in that instance we will then give assurance that to a degree that at least the annual information that's included in this annual report is also in line with the audit evidence that has been provided. So currently, if we are referring to that section indicating that that information has not yet been received, it just means that at the date that when we signed the audit report, that information has not yet been received. But subsequently, as far as I understand, we have done that specific proofreading, and we've already obviously then gone through the annual report that was now presented to the portfolio committee members that we're actually discussing today. And from our assessment, we have then also provided the water and sanitation department with the necessary assurance that there were no contradicting information in this annual report that we received. Maybe just on the stability of the DG. I think it's specifically one of the things we also included in the slides to mention that the impact of not having a DG or not having a appointed Director General. We have been seeing quite a specific impact in terms of the shift in leadership and also the continuous change of the specific Director General. Obviously, as what happens with most institutions, once your top management keeps on, changing, it does have an impact on your control environment, because every new Director General or every new leader that comes in will have to wants their stuff done in a certain way, and then that also got a specific impact in terms of the internal control environment filtering down. And that's one of the things that we've also started highlighting to the portfolio committee, and we've also had engagements with the minister in this regard. We have highlighted this to her to say that this is definitely one of the priority areas that needs to get the necessary attention so that they can appoint a Director General that can now, start maturing in that role, and then also move the department forward in actually just improving the internal control environment overall. So it is something that we have raised with the executive authority. Currently, where they are in the process, I'm not 100% sure where they are in terms of the process, but I think from our side, that might be a question that can be directed either to the department or to the executive authority directly, maybe just to find out exactly as to where they are in terms of the appointment process of the Director General. Okay, I think I've answered mainly the overall questions regarding from the members. I will now give a chance to Arishma. She will then answer specific questions on the WTE and TCTA portfolio that was asked by the members. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Eugene. Thank you, Chair. I think I'll start by answering one of the questions relating to TCTA internal control weaknesses. So with TCTA, the audit opinion was unqualified. However, we did note weaknesses in internal controls relating to inadequate reviews and reconciliations of the financial statements that were submitted, which didn't agree to underlying supporting information, as well as a lack of adequate review processes and controls by senior personnel, and slow response by management to information requests. We also found that management didn't implement adequate record keeping in a timely manner. And then with the, just a second. And then with the implementation of the Lesotho Highlands Water Project, which occurs across borders, certain supporting schedules were not obtained and quality assured prior to inclusion in the financial statements. And then also with management, they didn't adequately implement requirements of your supply chain management legislation, as well as your requirements of the framework for reporting program performance information. So with TCTA, if these internal control weaknesses can be addressed, the audit outcomes would then be more positive in the next period. Eugene, I'm not sure if I missed anything. Is there anything else that I needed to answer specifically on TCTA?
I think maybe just the one additional one of the members were just asking in terms of the correlation between what are we trying to highlight to the portfolio committee regarding the bank account and then the commitment subsequent to the bank account. Because one of the things that we mentioned was the fact that although they have a positive bank account, there are specific commitments that is highlighted after year end that actually moves them into a negative position. Maybe just touch on that, please.
All right, so with, as at the 31st of March, what we had noted was that there was a positive bank balance of R1 million compared to an overdrawn balance in the previous 3 years, consecutive years. So we did note a surplus of 5.4 billion compared to 2.2 billion in the previous financial years. There was a net cash flow of 8.3 billion compared to 8.4 billion in the previous year. So because of these positive balances and ratios, we did assess WTE to be a going concern, and most of these positive impacts were as a result of management exercising stringent budget control. Does that answer the question?
Thank you very much, Rishma. I think in this regard, thank you very much, members. Please, can we hope we've answered all of your questions. If we haven't answered your question, please can you just redirect the question again for us just to answer it, but that is our responses from our side. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Eugene. Honorable members, Honorable Rebecca Mhlala's hand is up.
Yes, Chairperson, I don't think the presenters responded on the 30 advisors The question regarding the 30 advisors, it was not responded to. I don't know whether did I not hear them or maybe they missed it by mistake. Can they attend to it, please?
Mr. Eugene?
Thank you very much, Honourable Member. Can you maybe just repeat the question for us, just to make sure that we are just addressing the question appropriately? Sorry about that, for missing it in the first place.
Honourable Musala?
Thanks so much, Chairperson. Let me repeat the question. On page 254 and 255 of the annual financial statement of the department for 2019-20, it reflects that the department sourced the services of 30 advisors. Is this, in your opinion, both to the AG and the DPME, not a cause for concern? Thank you.
Mr. Eugene?
Yes, thank you very much, Chair. I think we'll have to, I'm not 100% sure as exactly as to the specific reference. I will just ask one of my team members just to go through quickly the annual report specifically. But I think what I'm trying to understand is that obviously, if they would source advisors wherever they don't have the necessary expertise or skills within the department to actually advise them internally. So if I'm getting the question, I think maybe what the member is asking is that is there a high dependency on consultants or advisors at this point in time? And is that not a raise of concern? I think from our regard, one thing that we do within the Auditor-General, we haven't done it, but you will recall about 8 years ago, there was a specific audit that we did on the consultants and how the departments are using consultants excessively. So one of the recommendations we made back then was to say that obviously what the department needs to do is if they continue using the same advisors, let's say for instance, I'm giving an example now, where if they are using engineers continuously to build water infrastructure projects, at one stage they will have to do a cost-benefit analysis to try and identify as to will it not be more viable to appoint an engineer full-time within the department versus obviously using consultants all the time. So I think at this point in time, if that's what specifically the member's concern or question, we can go and look into it into a bit more detail. We haven't actually analyzed this into that much of detail in terms of how many advisors they've used for the department specifically. But if the member can maybe just give us indication as to what is the risk she sees with this, then we can also go back and just have a look at specifically and see if we have covered this in our detailed working papers, and we can also provide a formal response back to the member in this regard, either addressing her concern or also giving her an update as to how we will address this going forward in this regard. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Eugene. Honorable members, because we still have the planning and monitoring that is going to present, probably they might, because they are focusing on the implementation of the Public Service Act and how the department implements the strategic framework. Probably this matter can even be get the answer from there. If not, if the member is not happy, then we can then submit through the member, we can then ask the Auditor-General to go into the matter and advise on the issue.
Sorry, Chair. Maybe just from my side, I'm trying to raise a hand, and I don't know if it's my inability, my technical competence with the Zoom. Sorry about this. We just had a quick discussion with the team, and it seems like the CFO from the department would like to respond to this specific question in this regard to the member. Thank you.
Okay. CFO. Is the DM Mahlobo? Mr. Mwatsi, unmute yourself. Unmute Mr. Mwatsi. DM Mahlobo, can you get the CFO to unmute?
Okay, thanks, Chair. Maybe the host can help us, Chair. Remember, you said they must mute all of us.
Oh. Vyogazi, can you unmute the CFO?
Good morning, Honorable Chairperson, Deputy Minister, and the members.
Good morning, CFO. Yes.
Yes. Yes. No, I think the discussion with the Auditor General was just the clarification that the question does not relate to the consultants, but rather the committees which were appointed. But it was extensively explained by the Deputy Business Executive that it wasn't around the consultants appointed by the department. It's just the advisory committees that the question related to. But it has been responded to by the Deputy Business Executive. Thank you.
Okay, Honorable Mashala, I think the Auditor General they've responded to that, and they've said that they'll look into the matter, and the DPM is still coming because the question is even directed to them. If you are not happy with the answer, we can then, when we engage with the department, and I think we're going to have a session where we'll be engaging the minister. That matter can still discuss at that level.
Chair, the AG, he emphasized on what risk do I see. So I just want to reply on that, so that when actually I'm requesting the AG to give me a written response. And in terms of the risk, my question is why are there no skills in the department? Whether skill transfer from advisors to permanent staff is provided. This is what I want to check with them. And then the other thing I want to emphasize on this issue is how effective in 3 streams and whether reports are available of the work undertaken by the advisors, because we have 30 advisors. So is there any report on the work undertaken by these advisors? So in his written response, can he include all those things? And in terms of the risk, as I said, my worry is it seems like there's no transformation. Our department are lacking skills. That's why we end up getting advisors to do the work for us. So why are we not transferring the skills and to permanent staff members? Thank you.
As I've said, Honorable Member, I think the issue we need to interrogate it, because when we talk about permanent staff, if the work it's a short term, then you should take cognizance in terms of what it comes with the full-time personnel and your pension fund and other things. But it's not for me to engage on. I was saying that you have raised an important element. Can we take it further when we engage with even with the minister, understanding why the 30 advisors, and then we can then at that time make conclusion around that, and we can then request the AG to look on it in terms of what you have raised, honorable member. I see there is no any other hands. Let me thank the Auditor-General for the continuous good work that you do for our country, and commit that the recommendation that you have placed before this portfolio committee, we will take them forward and adopt them as our recommendation to Parliament, so that the department can then start to implement them. And thank you, the executive, Mr. Eugene, and your team for availing yourself. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you, honourable members. It was a very fruitful engagement. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Can we then go to DPME?
Good morning, Chairperson, honourable members, dear Matobo colleagues from DPME and the department. My name is Robert.
Maybe DG, it's 11 o'clock. Can I allow members 10 minutes break so that we can reconvene? So that, 10 minutes break, 17 past, we reconvene. Sorry, DG.
Good morning, Chairperson.
Hey.
Good morning,
break man wabulisa wedwa
Hayi itheni ngapheli. Itheni ngapheli.
Izophela nincamele phi ntshaseleni. There's no hurry in South Africa man.
Honorable members, we still have a minute.
Hey, kusekwakuthuleka ithuba elide. Tyo. Hayi nami besendilaqaza apho ndithi hayi ndithe ndishiye ndodwa apho kwenzeka.
Yada. Le report yase Alexander yayibhalwe uba Mahlobo nawe nawe ibonela isebhaliwe.
Ikuthatha uMahlobo ngoku andithi sasiyibhalile mna nawe sayisa ku-chief whip simnikezele
Ayibonelani ngani li-waste ama-state resources. This one is for us.
The report was
MC Ekoneni.
Bye bye mhlale bye.
Honorable members, can we reconvene DG DPME? DG.
Thanks, Chairperson, honorable members, and honorable dear Mahlobo, colleagues from DPME and other government departments and state entities. We once again come here to present to yourselves with regard to the performance of the Department of Water and Sanitation. Now, Chair, just a couple of issues from my side by way of introducing the presentation. In our last engagement with yourselves, you indicated that you would also want us to go deeper to verify the information that we receive from the departments. And I need to indicate that that is what we have been doing, and we will continue to do that with our limited resources. Now, Chairperson, this department is one of the very key departments when we talk about a delivery of services. And as we move to the DDM, as we start to implement the DDM in the coming financial year, this is one of the areas that we'll have to prioritize. And what we have done now, we have issued the guidelines for geo-referencing so that all projects of departments like this are also geo-referenced, which will make it easy for us and everyone who does monitoring to know where the projects are located, and then we can always follow up on that. And I think also that will benefit Parliament to have a sense of where the projects of this department are located. Now, the other issue that we are grappling with at DPME, Chairperson, is that we have noted that government departments transfer quite a lot of money to state entities, SOCs, agencies, regulators, and so forth. So when you look at a typical department, you'll find that out of what it gets as allocations from Treasury, most of the money will go to the entities that fall under that department. Now, that means that if we only report on the work of the departments and we don't touch on the entities, then we'll have serious challenges. So going forward, we also want to look into that situation. So in our next report, we'll also report on the performance of the entities, including TCTA, WTE, and others. So that is what we're going to be doing. Then lastly, Chair, by way of opening, is with regard to the capacity of the state. We are part of the engagements around the capacity of the state, and that includes the leadership of DPSA, which is our sister department in this regard. Now, the question that has been raised about the Director General of the department is a very correct question. It's a very relevant question that honorable members have raised. What we have seen, Chairperson, is that in the last presentation made by DPSA, I think it was 2 weeks ago, to another portfolio committee, this issue came up, and we were informed that in this particular case, the vacancy has been in existence since the 30th of November 2017. What it means is that for 37 months, we have been without a Director General in this particular department, which is a cause for concern, and DPSA is grappling with this issue. This is not the only department. There are several others, some going up to 65 months without DGs having been appointed. So, Chair, that is where we are now. The report that the DPSA has presented to the Portfolio Committee on Public Administration is publicly available, but also DPSA can give further details. But we know that there is this concern that has been expressed by that department with regard to the vacancy of the DG position. Then, as regards to the question on the advisors, ordinarily, you will then expect government departments to fill vacancies where they exist, because that speaks to building the capacity of the state. But it depends on a specific situation as what the motivation would be. And our understanding, advisors in the classical sense of the word advisor, as contemplated in the ministerial handbook, are appointed. Ministers have got 2 advisors each, and where ministers want to appoint more advisors, then they will have to seek the approval of the Minister of Public Service and Administration. At the same time, if you want to appoint people access to the establishment for one reason or another, you will also need the approval of the Minister of Public Service and Administration. So, Chair, on our side, we'll follow up with the DPSA in terms of whether this has been an issue for them and they are engaging on it. And either when we come back, we give feedback on this, or alternatively, honorable members can raise this with the 2 ministers. First, the Minister of the Portfolio and the Minister of Public Service and Administration. So, Chair, on that note, I have 2 colleagues who are going to assist me with the presentation. One is Hassan Mohammed, who's our expert in this particular area. And then 2 is Zakelem Daluse, who is also one of the outcome facilitators. So we'll go through the presentation and highlight also on some of the issues that were raised previously in our engagement with the committee, and indicate how we are beginning to deal with some of the recommendations that we got from the committee. And we'll conclude the presentation by our own recommendation on some of the pertinent issues. So just maybe to emphasize this point, that we are reporting against the commitments of the department as of 2019-2020 financial year. But we do take into account some of the recent developments, and the presentation will highlight on some of the key issues, and some were raised in the questions earlier on in our engagement with the AGSA. So I'll ask Mr. Hassan Mohammed to commence with the presentation. It's not a long presentation, so I think we'll be done in the allocated time. Thank you, Chairperson.
Good morning, and Chair, may I proceed?
Yes, proceed, sir. Can we see you, and you can close your video if you've got network challenges, so that members can see whom they're speaking to.
All right. I have tried to put my video on. There you are. I'm going to put it off now and continue with the presentation, if that's okay.
Okay, Mr. Mohammed. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. So as the DG in his introductory remarks mentioned, we're going to concentrate on the department's commitments in the 2019-24 MTSF, and what the performance has been in that regard. The way we're going to do it is, in terms of this format, If you look at the contents, we'll cover those 5 issues that have been reflected there. I mean, the purpose is, of course, straightforward, and we're here to brief the committee and honorable members on the performance. Just to mention that, of course, honorable members will be aware that the MTSF was formally adopted in October 2019. So when we're talking about performance here, we're talking about very early in the MTSF period. And that's one of the reasons why we just took a bit of a longer view and extended the assessment into end of June in 2021. In other words, into the first quarter. I think the honorable members are aware the approach we take to assessing performance against the MTSF is, of course, we start off by considering, departmental information and data. And the key thing here is of course, we want to know that in the way that the department gathers information and data, whether that's underpinned by robust systems, right? So that we can establish whether the quality and reliability is assured. But beyond that, we, of course, as DG mentioned, after the geo-referencing happens, or when it does happen, and we get a sense of exactly where projects are, that on-site verification can happen. And in fact, we expect that to be part of the report to Cabinet at the end of May on the performance against the MTSF targets. We used DPME's own development indicator report, and of course, critically external sources, in particular, Stats SA data. And the importance of the Stats SA data is also to help us establish the impact of government's work on society more broadly, rather than just in terms of a very sectoral performance. So just quickly by way of background, I mean, I don't want to spend too much of time here other than saying that this particular sector is very important for, as we're all aware, for both socioeconomic development and ensuring that we meet our requirements in terms of sustainable water, given our semi-arid conditions, and that it enables us to meet even our food security needs. Now, the key, maybe the slide that we didn't sort of include, is to just highlight that when we come to the, what the MTSF says about this particular sector and what it intends to achieve by way of outcomes, those are the 3 of them. So, but before I go into those outcomes, I think it's important to just say that they are informed by the fact that there's about 8 big challenges that the sector, or that has been identified for the sector. Of course, one is that, we have reliable water supply, in other words, resilience in the way that we provide the water supply, and also that we were able to provide sanitation. The second big problem, an issue and challenge in the sector that MTSF outcomes seek to address is to ensure that we have equitable sharing and allocation of particularly water resources, the whole area of water rights. The way we price this valuable resource is another challenge. Infrastructure management, operation and maintenance, efficient water demand management and reduction in water losses, given that it's a scarce resource. Whether we have sufficient regulatory oversight in terms of pricing and allocation. How well do we plan and implement, particularly wastewater treatment works, to cater for increased urban and rural areas? And finally, how do you deal with the challenges in the sector? So we know that there's a 33 billion rand funding gap according to the master plan. But we also know at the same time that given the 63 billion, 23 billion goes unspent. So I thought I'll just mention that, Chair, just by way of a backdrop. Sorry, I didn't include that in the slide as the sort of issues and challenges, which the so that takes us, and that will happen through these three outcomes: water security as the first outcome, and here its importance is that the sector has a valuable and important contribution to make regarding investments, infrastructure investment. The second is improved ecological infrastructure. That's to sort of ensure that we are managing this as a vital natural resource. And the last is, but not least, is that of course this resource is accessible as safe drinking water to communities, and dignified sanitation and so on. So those are the three big outcomes. If we look at each of those outcomes, again, in what the intervention has been, you'll see that in relation to the intervention on diversifying the water mix, there we know that the National Water and Sanitation Master Plan has been updated, and that was the sort of 2019 target. The application process and the timeframes within which license applications are issued, that's been also being finalized within the period of 300 days. Now, all of that's well, and that information is available, but even at this early stage, we are able to say that there's some of these targets in terms of water security which are on track, and some which, of course, movement has not happened. And just recall that I am saying that this is still the early period since the adoption of the MTSF only in October 2019 and formally launched by the President in January 2020. So those are I'll focus on the MTSF targets. So while the gauging stations, are being refurbished and so on, the progress on the development of one gauging station is still needs to move. On the diversification of the water mix through implementation of the Water and Sanitation Master Plan, again, there's no movement on the implementation of the 9 strategic water resource infrastructure projects. On the ecological infrastructure side, these performances are there. Main stem rivers monitored. There's, the target of 3 was not achieved. In river ecosystems monitoring, that has been exceeded. And similarly, mine water and wastewater management plans, that's been achieved, the target for that period. and for water users in various sectors monitored for compliance and water use licenses, that's also been exceeded. So the analysis from the point of view of the MTSF, though, shows that still 2 of the targets will require attention. And that's these are just those that are on track, but these that are not on track is what I'm focusing on. So mine water, the wastewater management plans. So there we say that the target is to have 3 minor waste management programs implemented by 2024, and that movement in that regard needs to proceed. And similarly, on the water users and their compliance to license conditions. There is an issue with misalignment between reporting, which we've brought to the attention of the department. Of course, at one level, we want to know how many users are being monitored for compliance. But the important measure is what's the compliance rate rather than how many are being monitored for compliance, and that's the difference. But we will be fixing that in time for the next period. On basic services, this is more about the extent to which the conditions have been created for improving access. We know that at the municipal level, water services authorities are the key agencies through which services to communities are provided. And of course, their functionality is important. And from that point of view, assessments of their functionality is important. And we see that 77% of assessments of 77% of all water service authorities were assessed in terms of their functionality. The bucket eradication, if I were to just focus that in the period, 692 bucket sanitation systems were replaced. This is just a reminder, this is of course in formal areas of the 12,000 that still remain in those formal areas. There has been, the sort of key development here is that there's been an agreement that HDA will take care of implementing this process because it has the requisite capacity to do this and ensure that we meet this target earlier than expected. So these are just the others. Of course, the green drop assessment, the refurbishment projects to address functionality, there were no targets in the period. The blue drop assessment is going to start in 2020-21, so there's no reporting there. And then those are the non-compliant or the compliant water systems monitored. And there you can see that there are 389 of those non-compliant systems that were monitored against regulatory standards. The link with the DDM is a new development and a new target, and progress in that regard will, of course, begin to happen in the new period. So this is also continuing with the performance on basic services. In related to bulk water supply projects, the department completed 3. The green drop regulatory requirement or the green drop reports will also happen, and they will alternate with the blue drop reports, so which means that it'll start in 21-22 because the the blue drop is going to be happening in 2021. I want to just go onto the MTSF targets. What does this tell us about where we are in relation to MTSF targets? So those are all the targets that are on track at this early stage. And we can see significant activity in relation to those MTSF targets. But the targets that will require still some attention and focus, or at least we need to make sure that we maintain a handle on, is first one is the annual assessments of all water service authorities. There we can see we did 77%, in other words, 111 out of 144 in the 2019-20 period. This is a 20% reduction compared to the previous period. And in order to ensure the functionality of these, we must, of course, ensure that all water services authorities are continuously assessed. Of course, assessment is one thing, but also to what extent those assessments are used to develop the necessary improvement and action plans to address performance gaps, and that's little progress has happened in regard to that. I've spoken about the bucket sanitation, that process has, as I've said, hadn't been the agreement has been reached as the HDA will be the implementing agent to fast track the eradication of the remaining buckets in the formal areas of bucket sanitation. So on the bulk water supplies, which is also the important one, although they are in process in terms of the sort of various phases, but not yet ready for proper implementation. No significant progress on wastewater treatment works, and that's something to be concerned about. So that's in relation to how, at this early stage, as I said, what it looks like in relation to MTSF commitments. But what is this telling us about how, this is impacting on communities and so on? So this is just an indication of how, as a country, we've progressed over time in providing people, households access to piped water. And you can see, of course, this is, of course, heavily reliant on Stats SA data, in particular GHS, that we've kind of by end of 2018 achieved 89%, and when the next release comes, we'll know. So bearing in mind that we are, targeting to have 95% by 2024. It means that there's a significant number of households who will need to be provided access by then. On the sanitation front, similarly, we've seen that movement, as at the GHS reporting period, 83% of households had. So although there is an upward trajectory, the target towards the 90%, 2024 target of 90% is going to be difficult to achieve if the pace of delivery on this, in terms of access to sanitation, is not dramatically increased. What's also important over and above access is how our community is feeling about the services. And this is extremely worrying. As you can see, that public trust and confidence in local government to deliver basic services has dramatically decreased. If we go early in the period to about 2007, you'll see that at that point, it was as high as like 70%. And since then, it's declined now in 2019 to 49%. And this indicates that the public has very little trust in the delivery of basic services by local government. So, and this we see in of course, the expression of this sort of thing, distrust we see in various ways, not least in terms of service delivery protests. So although, the number of service deliveries did decline between 2018 and 2019, these are still high numbers. And, the key contributing factors within this sector, especially as it relates to disruptions in water supply and, sanitation issues, particularly breakdown in sewage works and things like that, leading to all sorts of spills and so on. So if we were to start looking at the factors that could affect the achievement of performance targets, we see that the sector has seen inadequate investment over time. It's almost equivalent to what has happened in the energy sector, and what we're seeing through Eskom in terms of catching up on investment. So it does need an additional 33 billion rands to achieve, the full extent of our water requirements. But we know that, of course, this is going to be difficult given the situation we're in terms of the economic decline, reduced revenues, and accumulated debt. But related to this, of course, is, while we can think about, as I mentioned earlier, think about additional money of 33 billion, what we have to also think hard about is that the sector gets 63 billion or thereabouts, and is not utilizing to the full extent the 63 billion that it is. It only spends 40 billion of its allocation, meaning 23 billion of allocated funds are unutilized. And that will go to the heart of problem like proper project planning and so on. The second point there is that at least a third of which is that the sector is basically plagued with institutional weaknesses in key areas like municipal water service authorities. So 1/3 are considered dysfunctional, and more than half, right, have no or very little, very few or limited technical staff. The sector also suffers from a skill shortage and technical capacity at local government is, means that, of course, they have to rely on overpriced consultants. So, and just to give an illustration of what the extent of the shortage is, out of 278 municipalities, 202 municipalities are without civil engineers. Challenges in the procurement process, which results in delays. And this is the sort of point I've made about the fact that 23 billion of the 63 billion are unspent. So poor project planning, improper project management, challenges in procurement processes, all contribute towards that effort. And of course, that is further exacerbated by lack of relevant skills. we just thought we'll mention the War on Leaks programs, which continues to, while it continues to deliver training, the issue is, you know, the weak absorption of these learners by municipalities. And so we have a significant number of trainees now who've gone through the program but are not accommodated in municipalities. And we need to resolve that issue, that in getting municipalities to take on these trainees who've acquired the important skills that could assist municipalities in addressing issues related to leakages and so on. Water boards were mentioned in the previous sort of discussion and presentation. And again here, technical efficiency is sitting at 49%. You know, there is a case to be made of rethinking the number of water boards and perhaps merging some of the smaller ones into larger regional utilities. And you'll see later we're saying that this work is underway, and you know, proposals for institutional reform in this area is going to be, you know, will be sort of made available. So I'm not going to go through all of this, the issues here. I think that they are known to members. I don't want to take too much of time. Let me launch into reflections and conclusions. So I think at this early stage, as I said, of implementation of the MTSF, or given this period that that is under consideration, so progress can be largely seen to be satisfactory. There are, of course, issues. Some of the targets were not implemented, and for example, the 5-year water and sanitation reliability plans, the assessment of water and wastewater treatments for compliance, support to WSAs to develop and implement municipal priority action plans to address their operational and functional weaknesses, and non-commencement of the line refurbishment projects. The other important issue is, of course, to resolve all the issues affecting the rollout and completion of the remaining bucket eradication projects as a matter of urgency. And as I said, this is now being handed over to the HDA, the Housing Development Agency, to run with this initiative. The other important sort of development, which you know, which I suppose is interesting, is the multidisciplinary revenue task team. This matter did come up, I think, in a discussion earlier about the non-payment by municipalities to water boards and so on. This is a multidisciplinary revenue task team that involves, of course, National Treasury, DCOG, and Water and Sanitation to address the issue of non-payment of bulk water by municipalities. I've spoken about the consideration that's being given. It's part of a review being undertaken, I think, with involvement of National Treasury on the you know, what institutional realignment and possible rationalization of water boards. So that is an important development. There is also an issue that, you know, after all these years, what needs to be done about water services authorities that are not functional and are unlikely to fulfill their functions and duties in the foreseeable future. You know, we can't keep on carrying these municipal water service authorities that don't have the likelihood of fulfilling their service delivery duties and obligations. So something drastic has to be done there. We are also, of course, calling on Municipal Infrastructure Support Agency at DCOG and DWS to expedite the assessment of the water and wastewater treatment works. As reported, that area of work has not taken off in any big way. And then, the issue of establishing of a independent water regulator. And this is, establishment of this would be an important step to support the sector in various ways, particularly in terms of regulating tariff standards and performance in the water services sector. And that's our presentation, Chair. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, DG and Mr. Mohammed. Members, that was the presentation. You are welcome to interact with the presentation. Honorable Mashala. Proceed, because you are the only person that I see have raised the hand.
Yeah, no, thanks so much, Chairperson. I've got just one question. One would like to ask this high-level question. And if the DPME can answer now, it's fine. One can't talk about water security without assessing food security. What's concerning in the DPME presentation is the absence of analysis on impact of future water insecurity issues on availability of food sources. Not only in South Africa, but in Africa.
It's 12 hours.
Not only in South Africa, but in Africa as a whole. I would like for the analysis from the DPME to provide options for the future sustainable management of the water, food, energy nexus. That South Africa has innovative approaches, strategies, and technologies to address future needs of South Africa to ensure water security equals future food security. Thank you.
DG and your team, you can respond. This is the only question that has been raised.
Okay, thanks, Chairperson. I think the question is very correct. Now, in terms of water, the way we understand it is that the Water Master Plan sought to deal with this issue of the long-term needs of the country. So that is under control in that respect. Then, with regard to food security, we are also running a project. We just finalized a report on nutrition and food security, and it does touch on the water issue. So it could be that these are two separate processes. But once you are aware of the two processes of what we're doing in terms of food and nutrition versus this one, then you'll then appreciate that there is some thinking that has gone into the issues that are being raised. But I think the point is being made. And also on energy, I think it's known that there is a need for reforms that needs to be instituted. And Honorable Muthala is correct to say that we need a long-term view on this. And that work is happening in government. And recently there were announcements of some new renewable energy projects. But overall, there is work that is being done. It could be that when these issues are presented, they are presented in different meetings as opposed to being an integrated presentation. So what we did in this presentation, Chairperson, we focused on the water sector in a very narrow sense. But if the guidance is that in future, when we come here, we must also talk about other interdependencies. I think my team and I will then take that point to say that even when we talk about water, can we also look at other related issues and then reflect on them? So we'll take that point, Chair, and then attempt in our next presentation to also deal with other related issues, even if they don't belong to this sector. Thank you.
Thank you very much, DG. I see Honorable Constance Opasungwa, followed by DM Mahlobo.
Thank you, Chairperson. I have, I think, two questions to ask. First question is, what plans does the department have to ensure implementation for targets to be achieved? Because I see that as a challenge. The second point which I have, how far is the process of the internal consultation for the indicator to be achieved? Those are two questions I wanted to ask, Chairperson. Thank you.
Thank you, dear Mahlobo.
Well, thank you, Chair, and a very good afternoon to all
Let
the
me have
members.
GM. Let me have other members. You'll come because you must respond as sometime. We have Honorable Sifai and Honorable Grace Tag. Let's give them a chance, then we'll come after them. Honorable Sifai. Honorable Sifai.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. It's always good to listen to your problems and your challenges. But one would like to get from the presenters, is the department over planning its targets? You see, I'm raising the issue because there are people that have listened to these targets as they were planned, and then that they are not achievable. It worries them. The second one, Chair, is an issue of perhaps DPME. Is it difficult for its involvement in the planning when those targets are made, and then the planning for DPME to really raise questions that when you say you'll be achieving a 90% on the issue of the water security, remember there are interdependent department on you. Have you then roped in for them to know so that you plan together towards the achievement? The last one, Chair, I find it very strange the issue is raised by DPME to say municipalities do not have engineers. More than 20 years, the municipalities do not have engineers. Now, how do we account for that to our communities? Because engineers are a professional a body which builds them and be able to deploy them to different municipalities when they don't have. How does it happen that there are no engineers in municipalities? I want to hear a proposal of the department on the issue of the non-performance of municipalities, because continuously national department, if not necessarily this department, are depending to municipalities' responses towards the funds that are sent for them to give services to the people. What must we do? I hear the integrated development model. There's something that perhaps we need to do, because you can't say municipalities must stay away from our plans and from our programs. We can perform alone without them. I want to hear what's the proposal of the department on this matter, because it's a critical matter which continues to be a problem. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Sukai. Honorable Tseke.
Good afternoon, Chair. One question. PM.
Your network is not stable, Honorable Tseke. Your network is bad. I can't hear.
Can you hear me, Chair?
Yes, now you're audible.
Is it better?
Yes.
Oh, thanks very much, and thanks DPME for the presentation. I only have one question. Given the fact that our country has been hit hard by the COVID-19 pandemic, which has affected too many programs and projects within our sector and countrywide, and also affected our country's economic status, is the DPME currently engaging on revising or revision of targets as highlighted in the NDP and in the medium-term strategic framework? That's my only question, Chair.
DM Mashawa.
Chair, I raised my hand to ask another question, if possible.
Oh, okay. Honorable Constance.
Thank you, Chairperson. I just wanted to find out about these 7,000 learners who that completed their course and cannot be accommodated in municipalities. And yet we say that we don't have capacity at the municipality level. So does it mean that taking these learners to training, is it a fruitless expenditure? Because if they cannot be utilized in municipalities, where else are they going to go? Because government spend a lot of money in training them. So, and as a result, what is the department doing to make sure that these learners have been properly allocated to different municipalities or are being accommodated? And the other question is, in terms of the water bill, how far is the department as far as that is concerned? Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Honorable Sopasingwe. Honorable DM Mashawa.
Well, thank you very much, Chair. I thought I was going to be answering that first question, but then there are a number of questions that have came. I'm not sure whether the chair would want me to come now, whether we allow DG Comrade Guna to respond on the DPME issues first. Then there are those that might be related to the department. Then we can ask the acting DG and Manasseh to respond before I come, but I need your guidance.
Okay, then I will give the DG to respond. Maybe just to add on the question of Ms.
If they can take it, the chairperson, if they can take it the screen, this presentation off the screen.
Okay. Can we get the DPME to remove or Vyogazi? The screen should. Okay, thank you. I wanted to add on the question of Ms. Fai and Ms. Oposeng on the capacity of municipalities. Seeing that the planning and monitoring is in the presidency, and presidents usually have what is this forum that they call for presidents and premiers, which include some municipalities. I'm not sure whether they include the executive. Yes,
the Presidential Coordinating Council.
Yes. What just to check whether is it not possible for DPME to raise this issue in that forum or to notify the president, because one of the disruption that you're talking about in the municipalities, it's created by lack of skills in the municipalities. And municipalities, they are continuously employing, if you open advert, they are advertising, taking labor. And when you have these people that have been trained, but secondly, there are a lot of engineers that have been produced by the higher education, which are not actually getting employment in the level of municipalities because of the tender processes. This question, DG and TM, probably we might want to raise it at that meeting where the municipalities should be able to be forced to employ these graduates that we have who are lingering on the streets. They've got the skills, and they needed to be given the skills, and making sure that the issue of tenderers does not actually replace the state capacity. As we build the state capacity, if there is no enforcement at that level, from the higher office to municipalities and national, will continuously experience problems in terms of this capacity in municipalities. If you open advert, they are employing laborers, 50 laborers, and this and that, and when they are not taking care of the of the skills, and the department at some point raised the issue that particularly as they've assessed the wastewater treatment plants that are not functional, a majority of them, municipality does not have that required skills, and there is no interest in municipality to appointing those interests. What is it that can be done without actually harming the constitutional obligations of various sectors of government, various government because municipality is required by the constitution, but I know the Water Act 74, it says that, Service Act, it says that in an area where the Water Service Authority cannot perform, national can come in and perform the services and build capacity and hand it over the program back to municipalities. At what point are we revoking those legislation? My question is both to DPME using the Office of the Presidency and the DM. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Chairperson. On the last, I'll start with your questions, and I'll be very quick. On the question that you raised about the national government intervening in municipalities, that one I will delegate upward to DM Matlobo and deal with the one on vocational training and internships. That Chair is correct to say that we could be doing better. And these are the issues that are being considered in the employment stimulus, in the discussion that is taking place in planning for the creation of jobs. We are looking into these issues. But at a separate level, we'll also take what Chair said in our engagement around the role of SOCs, because historically, SOCs have been training grounds for young people. And I think we need to revert to that situation. So Chair, we take your point, and we will then raise this as part of the discussions with regard to the role of SOCs in the developmental state, so that they also assist in terms of creating skills in society, allowing young people to be skilled. So that recommendation is taken. Then with regard to what Honorable Tsege said, the APPs were revised for the financial year 2020-2021. This is the financial year that is ending next week. So we only revised the APPs for that because of COVID. But in the prior years, we did not revise the APPs. So we revised the APPs for this financial year. And now in terms of the APPs that we have seen, some of the targets that were revised because of the budget reprioritization have been reinstated. And I think when the department present our request, Chair, that also comes up when they present their new APP to show the targets that had to be canned in the current financial year, how they've been reinstated into the current financial, in the new financial year going forward. I have not looked at the specific cases of this department, but in our engagement with departments, we went back to some of the targets that were canned and asked departments to reinstate them. Now, doing so also depended on the availability of resources, whether there was money to finance those targets. So there are cases where the targets that were initially rescheduled have been reinstated, but it will differ from one situation to another. And I request, Chair, that when the department comes to present the new APP, we also look into that, the extent to which the targets of the current financial year that were not implemented, if they have been reinstated in the new APPs. Now, in terms of the role of DPME in planning, we do meet with departments. They first send us drafts, Chair, and we look at each and every APP and write back to departments where we need clarity. And now it is incumbent eventually on the DGs and ministers to say, after that engagement with DPME, this is what we think we can do. So we do an audit of what we receive from departments. They first send us drafts, we comment on the drafts, and then they send us final. Now the final ones that they send to us amount to agreements between the ministers and the DGs that, given the resources at their disposal, they will be able to implement a project. Now, lastly, on consequence management of now implementation, honorable members are aware that all ministers now have signed their performance agreements which we have also published in the website of government. So the assessment of performance will no longer be limited to DPME in its interaction with the DGs, but it will also go higher up and allow the president also to have a sense of what is happening. So at the end of each and every financial year, DPME is going to produce a scorecard of performance that will also be sent to the president so that the president can look at the performance of departments, and that will allow ministers to obviously account for lack of performance. So talking about the role of the president as we understand it, it is from a performance point of view in the main, but again, I can delegate upward in terms of the other part which relate to how the president can intervene through the PCC. And I think our leader, DM Mahlobo, can then deal with that issue, Chairperson. Let me ask Hassan just very quickly to speak to two issues: the issue of the engineers and the issue of 7,000 learners who have not been placed after they've been trained. Just those two issues, Chair. Mr. Hassan?
Well, thank you. So, I mean, see, there is on the issue of the engineers, I mean, that's the sort of skills assessment that has been completed and done, and that's the that was the assessment arrived at. Now, it is, of course, a problem as members correctly pointed out. So how, it is a critical skill at municipal level, because they're responsible for very important technical services, as we know, water, sanitation, and so on, waste, as well as energy. So, so it is a big issue about how we address that particular concern and ensure that, in fact, those critical skills do find their way into municipalities. So I think that issue has to be raised with the, correctly as pointed out by the chair, within the platforms or forums, right, where MECs are present, as well as representatives of local government sector, which will include, of course, districts and metros, as well as SALGA, like the President's Coordinating Council, for how we address that particular challenge and ensure that municipalities have these requisite skills. I mean, so engineers are important, but we also, so I'm saying it's a big issue, and it has to be addressed because it's not only restricted to technical services. We're also finding similar problems in the area of the budget office and CFOs. Even to National Treasury, as well as I think the Auditor-General has reported in the audit outcomes of how, even within that budget office, we have people who don't have the competencies and skills to do the job. So there's important, the point I'm making is that it's a big issue, and it'll have to be systematically addressed with, in the right forums and with the right role players involved. The issue of war on leaks, I think the department can tell us more about that, but the issue is that, they have been, as we've reported, they have been successful in training, but the take-up by municipalities has been a problem. And we're urging that rather than continuing to emphasize training, when absorption is not happening, is problematic. And so we have to resolve the issue about how these trainees will be integrated into the municipal organization before more and more trainees get trained and funds get spent in that regard. So the issue was in that rather than training and then finding which municipalities would like to absorb these trainees, they're probably the model has to be looked at so that prior arrangement is made with municipalities about how many they're prepared to absorb and so on, and then the training fits within that, so it sort of addresses a demand-driven issue rather than oversupplying trainees who can't be accommodated. But I'm sure the department will have more to add on that and how they are attending to that particular problem of take up by municipalities. Thank you.
No, thank you very much, Chairperson. And firstly, Chair, let's just thank yourselves as a portfolio committee and to thank the leadership of the DPME led by the DG Comrade Guna and the team from Auditor-General of the Republic that was led by Eugene, their business executive. And we try to give them our best cooperation, including the support by yourselves of our improved performance in a number of areas. But equally acknowledge, Chair, that there are still a lot of other areas of improvement. Like honorable members we are saying, and we seek to do that because the organization for quite some time has challenges, but you could see that when it comes to stabilizing, following up certain issues, the officials are trying their level best. We are not at a stage where we could say definitely we are proud, but at least there is progress being made. And the DPME to us, they remain our good partners and treasury, because not only are they assessing our performance, including the quality of our planning, but also with their very good reports, we benefit. The issue that was raised earlier on, Chair, about important policy issues, we would suggest that probably when the team has time, the portfolio committee, we can share some of the work we are doing on water, energy, and food nexus. And there's been a lot of volume of work that is being done by even our own entities, including the Water Research Commission chairperson, because we clearly understand what does it mean. And that's why our blueprint, which is the National Water and Sanitation Master Plan, it takes into consideration on how water becomes an important catalyst for socio-economic development, because members will remember that many people and many South Africans in particular, Black people and Africans in particular, they were denied access to water. Not only denied access to water, but they were also denied the economic benefits to issues of water, because there are a lot of economic benefits. I'm familiar with the work that the Water Research Commission is doing and the work that we're doing with the Department of Agriculture and Energy, but probably when you have time, we should be able to share with that. Your Excellencies, when it comes to the issues of war on leaks and those particular learners, we need to be able to indicate, Chairperson, that there's not been such movement with respect to placing of these learners. And despite that, there were a number of joint meetings with COPTA, the two ministers, Minister of Human Settlement, Water and Sanitation, and Minister of Cooperative Governance. We've raised these issues with MECs responsible for local government, and including SALCA. And we are very pleased to note that even the president of SALCA has even returned to municipalities chair and insisted that municipalities, they can continue to complain about the high levels of non-revenue water that in part is caused by physical losses, and the others is just unaccounted, including the deteriorating infrastructure that has failed when there's an existing capacity. Even this past Monday, we had an opportunity with the ambassador of Japan, where Japan was supporting South Africa, the minister and the ambassador and ourselves were there. We've actually created a training facility sponsored by the Japanese government through Japan International Cooperation Agents. And we can indicate, Chairperson, that a number of municipalities are participating, including practitioners. And it looks like some municipalities, they like people that have been trained through that partnership with the Japanese. And we have even made a decision that before some of these officials can be taken by municipalities, probably for prestige. I don't know whether they need prestige because they were properly trained by ourselves and the sitters. They will go through that particular program, Chair, so that at least we can be in a position to give them that particular exposure. But this is more needed there. On the question of engineers, Chairperson, we take your point. We will have a discussion at the highest level at the Presidential Coordinating Council, because you are correct. Our universities have produced a lot of engineering graduates. And most of these municipalities don't have these engineers. They have a lot of technicians. But at the very same time, we'll also take the discussion, Chair. A number of them, they remain graduates, not engineers, because there are still some difficulties with the issues of their own tutelage. How do they become professional engineers with the Engineering Council of South Africa? And we need to be able to look at that. But working with COGTA, especially the municipal infrastructure support agents and ourselves, we are looking at that. But in the meantime, we have been very clear to mobilize capacity with MISA, including our relationship with the Cubans that we have actually extended to bring more engineers. For an example, the minister has deployed a lot of engineers, more than 6 engineers there at Mfuleni, just to deal with the challenges that they continue to have, because infrastructure is actually not being managed well. Therefore, we agree with you to say, let's make it not a sectoral issue. We'll make it a government issue through that particular forum, working with the DPME, COGTA, and ourselves. When it comes to issues of municipalities, Chair, the problems are deep-rooted in municipalities, Chair. We are trying our level best with the limited resources to support municipalities. But the reality, there are those municipalities, Chair, that are really, really not viable. Even the money that gets to be given to them because of the issues of the funding formula, they remain to use that money for salaries, and their salary bills are very high. They can't do the basics, especially when it comes to discharging a function like a water services function as water services authorities. That's why now and then we're to come in and do the secondary function of support. And sometimes this support that we do to them is always not actually funded. Well, Chairperson, the other members are raising serious issues about the performance or achievements of targets in the department. We'll probably discuss it more when you discuss the annual report of the department, especially on our program for infrastructure. There have been some challenges around procurement challenges in the department. And you'll recall that the acting DG at the time were to try to streamline issues of procurement, because also procurement in the department was a source of some of our challenges, including malfeasance. That's why a number of disciplinary issues are there. And those systems have been improved. But also generally, some of the infrastructure projects, Chairperson, you don't actually get delivered right now. There are sometimes multi-year, some of these projects. But we'll have a discussion with yourselves when we actually consider our report on the basis that we have received the AG report. We have also received the DPME report so that we can explain, because that's the area where we think we should be able to spend more time and be able to say even the department itself, how does it improve its capability, including just the discipline, Chairperson, of project management, start something and finish something on time. Or when there's an implementing agent, our ability just to do contract management. Umam Shwai should always remind us that the importance of the project management and contract management doctrine or discipline is an important aspect. Those are some of the issues, Chairperson, I thought we should be able to speak to, but at the very same time, just to indicate that our two partners, in terms of the work we do, we are actually working so well, and we want to thank them, especially in the previous financial years reporting that they've came back to actually give you feedback. And we're hoping now that as we're closing this financial year, 2021, our cooperation and improvement, including just making records and documents available on time through the acting DGen and CFO, we should be able to do that. I would want to stop there, Chairperson, unless there's an important matter that Deborah or Leonardo Manas, they think I might have missed, with your permission, before you actually take over again, Chairperson. Thank you.
Acting DG or Leonardo?
Good afternoon, Chair, and good afternoon, honorable members. I am not going to dwell much or go into a lot of details. I would like to just indicate or maybe clarify the issue on advisors, that it has got nothing to do with the ministerial handbook. In terms of the National Water Act 36 of 1998, Chapter 9, Section 99, the minister may establish an advisory committee, and the conditions, the remuneration and everything are detailed in that section. Also, in terms of the Water Services Act, Act number 108 of 1997, Chapter 8, Section 51, the minister may also establish water services committees. Sometimes the word committee and advisory are used interchangeably, but there are differences there. The others are on the water resources, and some are, and one is on the water resources, the other is on the water services. And the minister may assign duties to them as she deems fit, or as the need dictates. On the overutilization or over-reliance of consultants, that has reduced drastically over the years. We were also forced into that by the constrained fiscus. It didn't happen overnight. The fiscus was getting constrained gradually, as could be demonstrated by the budget that we were getting from National Treasury. We are we are using stringent measures before we approve that consultants be used. One of the measures that we have put in place is to request the team or whoever is requesting for the utilization of consultants to check from our website, look at what has been done, especially if you have just joined the department recently, you might not have really checked well. And we also refer you to what WRC might have produced so that we don't duplicate. If we need to review, then we rather review than start the process afresh. And sometimes what we find there helps us to reduce the size and the scope of the project to the bare minimum. So we really are hands-on on that one, and we are hoping to deliver. On the issue of control measures, I am not going to defend that we have strong control measures, honorable members, but I will say that over the years we have put in place control measures. It is just that sometimes it is not the absence of a control measure. It is because some people get creative and circumvent those control measures. One would say if they can be circumvented like that, then it means they are not strong. Yes, even the banking systems, ITs get hacked. That's why they keep checking from time to time. And so we keep checking. And when something has happened, we look at how it happened and how we can further strengthen our control measures in the department. We have since improved and accelerated on the consequence management as a result or emanating from the investigation reports that we are doing inside the department. Is we are not only reliant on SIU, we also do our own internal investigation. Our risk chief directorate and our internal audit have done a number of forensic audits, from which we took consequence money steps. I would like to remind honorable members that it is not a quick process, unfortunately. It is not a quick process. I think I did indicate this in the past, that during the process of a matter, a disciplinary matter, a lot of things crop up there that can delay the process. When somebody says, I am not well, you cannot proceed, especially when they produce a medical certificate. When somebody changes lawyers, even in the court, it is provided for. When somebody says, I don't want the department to use lawyers and therefore would also not use lawyers, the department has to get an evidence leader, a prosecutor in common terms. And it is not easy to get such in the public service. And I hope that that matter will be addressed, because it is not every employee that wants to, and it is granted, it is provided for in the laws, labor laws, and therefore we cannot force to use lawyers when somebody says go for section whatever of the Labor Act, which gives me permission not to use lawyers. So we are doing that, and Minister has also established a ministerial disciplinary committee. That ministerial disciplinary committee is focusing on SMS cases, because it is precisely or specifically or mostly for SMS, on SMS cases that we are battling to get evidence leaders. So the matter is receiving attention, and we are hoping to win on that battle. On the issue of war on drugs, DM has assisted and even indicated the interministerial engagements that we have had and the battles and the resistance that we are experiencing. But I just want to say that even prior to the start of the program, municipalities were involved. They were asked to provide names of the candidates from their areas. And what also informed the selection was the volumes, the high volumes of water losses. So we chose more numbers from where there were high water losses. It is just unfortunate that we find ourselves in a situation where it seems like this is new to most of them, but it is not. They were engaged, and this is to assist the country to save money on water losses. This country is water scarce, and when we take whatever effort to reduce the water losses, we believe that every citizen of this country and every authority in this country will actually assist in that process, because 9 billion lost to losses is not easy money. It's not few cents. The presidency is also trying to assist us there under the committee that is led by Dr. Ramokupa. He is also trying to assist us there. So we are trying at all doors that we can to get the candidates taken up and by absorbed into structures and be assisted for them to improve on their skills. The issue of engineers has been responded to. I don't want to waste time there, but I just want to say that it is not only impacting on municipalities. We as a department are hugely impacted by the lack of adequate skills. Honorable members will be reminded that it is not just any and every engineer that can be given any and every job. because when the structure fails, it is somebody that has to be adequately trained, that has been adequately trained and well registered for that person to take accountability for whatever is happening there. So we cannot at any point really risk the lives of South Africans by taking engineers that are not adequately registered and trained. When you look at how we rate the dams in the country, there is a risk associated to that as well. We look at the risk. How many lives will be lost should this structure fail? How many? What can be the level of devastation that will come out of the failure of that particular dam? So there's a risk that is associated with our structures, and therefore we need to be very, very careful. The unfortunate thing is that the mentorship has not been very good, and the registering bodies also have not, I don't think, and I'm speaking out of correction here, Chair, that I don't think they have transformed at the speed at which they should have. And that is why the country is faced with this shortage of skills. We are faced with aging technical skill in the department and in the entire sector. And I think that focused attention must be given to this, not only for municipalities, but for the entire sector. On the achievement of the department and how we plan, Chairperson, I want to believe that we do our best. There are certain projects, there are certain targets that we are required to put in the APP based on the budget. I think that in the next time we come as a department to present to the annual report to yourselves, we'll be able to explain why we put whatever we put on the APP and why we did not achieve as we had planned to achieve. But Chair and honorable members, we are zealous to deliver on our mandate. We are aware and every day embarrassed and feeling saddened by the circumstances we see our fellow citizens in lack of water and poor sanitation. So we are zealous. We are trying our best. It's just that there are circumstances that sometimes you can't beyond our control. And then also our intervention, we intervene at a higher percentage in the municipal space, really, with the limited resources, human capacity, and the budget that we have. We intervene at a higher percentage in this area. And whenever there's a crisis, we are the first to jump, and that also does impact on our capacity to deliver on our primary mandate. So we will elaborate on some of these things when we come and present our annual report and the performance assessment and achievement that we do per quarter to the honorable members. I think I need to stop here because we will have our chance to respond to some other issues when we come. As usual, we are the usual attendees, so we will do that at the time. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, honorable members.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Acting DG. As you said that the department, you still have much more time to come and interact with members as you will be delivering the annual report, and members will have enough time to engage with yourself. Today we're focusing only on the DPME and the Auditor-General. But thanks for the clarities that you have provided in some of the issues. Honorable Muhlala.
Thanks so much, Chairperson. Chairperson, you know, the number of 30, the issue of 30 advisors is a point of concern to all of us. We are not against the fact that the minister appoint advisors, but the number is too big.
Honorable Muhlala.
And Chairperson, I requested to get a written response with regards to the progress report on the work the 30 advisors have completed for the financial year under review. Can we get that? What is that they were doing? because it's a matter of concern. We are not against 30 the advisors in the portfolio committee. We don't have a problem with that, but the number is too big. The other issue, Chairperson, is with regards to the issue of municipalities and the national department, all those things. We are sitting in this committee listening as if we are talking about the ANC and the EFF. The municipalities, most of them are run by the ANC. We come and listen to you blaming each other like this when you have power to make things in control. You have power yourself as the... Hello, Chairperson?
Honorable member, you're out of order. You're out of order, honorable member.
I'm not out of order.
You are out of order. You are out of order, honorable member, because municipality, we're talking about government.
Who's running? Who's running? Who's
you
the...
cannot, honorable member, you are out of order, please. Honorable members, I've indicated that the issues that department are raising, we still have enough time to engage with the department. Today we're receiving the report of the Auditor-General.
How am I out of order, Chairperson?
You are out of order because you are comparing, you are talking about the ANC in the meeting, and this is government, honorable.
The ANC is the one that is...
You are out of order, honorable.
The ANC is in power, is the
Honorable Mushala, you are out of order. But
when we talk about the government, we'll always bring the name of the ANC.
Honorable Mushala, you are out of order. Listen what I'm saying. You are.
Chairperson, is you who's out of order, not me.
Honorable Mushala, you are
I'm not out of order. I'm trying to raise my...
Honorable Mushala,
oh, you who's out of order. The ANC is the ruling party. You are out of order yourself.
Honorable Mushala, you are out of order.
No, Chair, can you mute Member Mushala's? He's actually ill-disciplined in this meeting. Please mute him.
Honorable
You are the one who is ill-disciplined. You're not supposed to be talking. The chair must be talking.
Listen, Honorable Mushala, I'm saying the issues that department is raising, the department is coming to present. You would have members who still have enough time to interact with those issues, and therefore DPME and Auditor-General were giving their reports and issues that affect the department. We still have the department to come and respond to. And in that meeting, we'll engage Honorable Mushala on your statement, but this is not the correct time to raise those issues here. That's what the order I'm referring to.
Chair, we are on mute.
Honorable members, that was the report, and thank you very much, DPME. Your report would help us to engage the department and issues that they've raised by the Auditor-General. As we are going to interact with the department, we'll use them as our reference for debate and come up with the resolution because the intention of this process is the process of BRRR, which identify the weaknesses and the strength and suggest and recommend to Parliament on how other issues has been raised by yourselves and the department themselves can be resolved and would them take them to Parliament as BRRR. Thank you very much, DG and your team. We always appreciate your presence. Honorable members, that was the last item on the agenda, and thank you very much. The meeting is adjourned.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. Motlala, the ANC is not a ruling party or a governing party.
Are you a governing party? Yes, that's correct. So
yeah,
why
we're not rulers.
Okay.
Thank you
Mama
very much,
Shir.
honorable members.
Thank you,
Inkinga
Chair.
uma
Thank you.
Emsala.
Ubalekile lo muntu Baba Mashir.
Mawulungile uyasaba ekwala. Sizomthola ngelanga lakhona.